Truth spoken here with your host, the Maestro Eddie C. McLeod. That's me, y'all. Welcome once again to Truth Spoken here. Now, it's my pleasure and my honor to have today as my guest a man who wears many hats like several other guests I've had on here. This guy is a musician, an author, also an educator, Mr. Tim OKeefe. So how are you, Tim?
Doing good, man. Doing really good. It's nice to be here. It's so good to see you after all this time.
Yes, now me and Tim have been friends for like, about 10, 11 years now. And this is my first time seeing Tim since before the pandemic. So it was great to see Tim there. I called Tim and I've been meaning to get him on here. So he finally agreed and I finally got in touch with him and stuff and got him on here. So Tim, tell us about how we'll talk about the music first, because we got a lot to cover with you. So how did you get started in music?
Really, my mom was a musician when I was a kid, and she played piano. She was an amazing piano player, and she had my brother and I in music lessons from the time we were really little. Second grade, I picked up clarinet, and I took lessons from an amazing teacher. And then in high school, I did not want to play clarinet when I was a kid. I would much rather have picked up guitar or keyboards or drums or anything. And my mom told me when I was about 8 or 9 years old that all the girls like clarinet players. So I went with that. So I played clarinet for about 6 years, and I got good at sort of classically reading music and sight reading and so forth. And I got pretty good at that.
Now see, this is amazing because I've known Tim all these years. I never knew that he had any formal training at all as far as music. So
I'm sure my embouchure is shot by now. But so then when I was about 15, I wanted to play guitar. I sort of had a bromance with my sister's boyfriend, and he played guitar. And I commissioned him to get me a guitar, and I got a $60 Toyota 3/4 size guitar, laminated.
Toyota guitar? Toyota guitar?
Yeah,
made by the car brand?
I don't know if it's the same or not. I assume.
That with the Japanese back you talking about the 70s.
Yeah.
They had their hands in everything, so that's very possible.
Yeah, it was a cool little guitar, and he taught me my first chords and bought me my first chord book and gave me my first music book. Everything was in books in those days. I had Bob Dylan's retrospective songbook, so I knew the songs in my head and in my heart, and they were the chord diagrams. And so he taught me how to teach myself, more or less. And I luckily have played in various situations with other musicians 10,000 times better than me. And they graciously allowed me to play along with them and taught me how to play. So I played in college bands and little groups, little ensemble groups, and more lately in church bands, praise and worship stuff. And so I had a buddy I played with for about 10 years, and he and I worked up 100 songs and had harmonies and stuff. And so he and I were about the same speed guitar-wise, but we were able to push each other. You know, if you play with someone who's
great.
better than you, you have a tendency to rise to the occasion. So,
Right.
So it was that kind of thing. And I don't play out much these days. I've got a few little things lined up, but I still play every day.
Yeah, the pandemic changed everything for the worse, I think, sometimes as well, you know. But
Well, one thing the pandemic did for me was since the pandemic started in March of 2020, I posted a song on Facebook every week. I haven't missed a week.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm glad you told me that.
Yeah, different, almost all different songs. So I don't know how, is that 150, 200 songs? And almost, I've repeated a few, but they're almost all different. And, you know, some originals mixed in with lots and lots and lots of covers.
Now, tell me about your song. You know, I love your song, "The Nine."
Yeah. Well,
let's talk about that particular song.
Yeah. So, for good or
Just
bad.
pulling out his notes, y'all.
We're talking about. I'm just getting the lyrics.
Right.
For good or bad, I'm often motivated to write songs when serious or sad things happen. So like everyone else, right? Like a broken heart or whatever.
Right.
You're motivated to write if you have a tendency to write. Those are the times that, with me anyway, because I've been in love with the same woman for pretty close to 50 years. So
yes, and later on we're going to talk about the amazing love story of Heidi and Tim. We're going to talk about that later.
So I can write love songs, but it's only from the perspective of right now of sort of older love, right? But when something bad happens, like what happened in Charleston in 2015, those are the kinds of things that catch my attention, and I'm drawn to write about those songs.
Right.
So half of my songs are tragic. It's like, what would you rather hear? Deeply tragic stories or sentimentally heartbreaking stories? You know, those are the things I'm drawn to write a lot of.
Well, tragedy is necessary because you think even evil is necessary because if not for evil, we have to measure the good by. It's like if every day's a sunny day, they say, what's so special about a sunny day? So
That's a brilliant point. And the thing about the Charleston Nine was, even though it was the darkest of dark tragedies, and I wrote this song very soon after it happened, so it was still fresh and achy in my heart. When I think about the response of most of the family members, it was like a knee-jerk response to forgive that guy. And
Yes.
so out of that tragedy came one of the most beautiful things. And at the time, too, there was the sense that something was going to be done about sensible gun control and sensible, background checks and those kinds of things, because the killer, whose name I won't mention, but the killer of those fine people got a gun through a loophole, right? I mean, it was a loophole, and it was an error on the part of the people who were supposed to check on him, right?
Right.
It took a certain amount of time, and that time lapsed, and so he got the gun, even though the background check wasn't quite finished. So it's a song. It's a song of tragedy, but it also has those moments in it where it's uplifting. The part about the families of the victims wanting to forgive, and also it was a hopeful time. Now, since then, not much has changed. And I saw a guy just not far from here carrying a gun the other day, looking at himself in the reflection of a mirror. It was by the guitar store downtown, and wearing a gun on his hip and just sort of checking his look in the reflection of the glass. And I thought, that is just so pathetic. Here we are now, these years later from this and every other tragedy, and people carrying guns right out in the open.
That's the way our society has become now, sadly. It's like I don't even know what the answer is, because every time there's any discussion of every time we get one of these mass killings, you have a discussion about gun control, and nothing ever gets done and stuff. Then you have people. People just go out and buy more guns. Seems like you got the people. You got the nutcases that like the first thing they haul about is they're going to take away our guns, so they go out and buy more guns. They stockpile guns, so that's like adding to the problem.
Yeah, it is. And when you consider we're the only country who has sort of open carry almost anywhere now, or many places. We're one of the only industrialized countries where everyone can have a gun and carry a gun in most places, and we have the highest murder rate. There's no There's no mystery about that.
I just wonder with stuff like that how we look to the rest of the world. We probably look like barbarians.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. Because I know people, internationals, who think we are barbarians. You know, it's funny. You can't look at yourself and see the truth. It's like when you think about the Holocaust, right? We always think of those tragedies as happening in other places. And I went to Rwanda 15 or 17 years ago, and they had a genocide there.
Yes.
1,116,000 people were killed in like 100 days. It was a greater loss of life than the Holocaust, and,
yes.
and World War II. And so I went into this place. This was an army barracks, and it was sort of where the genocide began in Rwanda. And there were bullet holes all over and grenade fragments on the wall. And they left it just as it was. And the only thing they changed about it was there were pictures, there were photographs in there, and posters. And there was one room that had a poster of the genocides throughout history, and they were listed in order. And North America, our genocide of the Native Americans, was listed on the very top. And it gives you pause, right? When you think that, okay, 20 million people were genocided in North America because of westward expansion and Europeans colonizing this beautiful space that really did belong to other people.
Yes. And that's one of the problems is like now you see now how they got this effort now to suppress history. With the critical race theory, they don't want. I mean, I think like, and you may disagree with me on this. Just like when you see people like talking about how, like the removing of the Confederate monuments. Now, you got a lot of people that think that's a good thing. But I think that I don't think they should be done away with altogether or anything. I think as long as they're there or somewhere where people can have access to them, people like you and I can have dialogue about those things, and maybe we can get something solved. But if you get rid of them altogether, then it's like basically sweeping history under the rug. So, that's the same thing with like this thing with critical race theory. I mean, like, it's not about. I don't think it's about really about making anybody feel bad, because if we be truthful about the Atlantic slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade could not have succeeded without the help of other Africans. Mm-hmm. So we don't start pointing fingers. There's no blame to go around. Because I don't think there's like a culture in the world at some time, or race or whatever, ethnic group, whatever, that at some time in their history has not enslaved or exploited another ethnic group or whatever. So we all got blood on our hands. I think it's that. I think, but if we can just go forward, like just start talking about these things, and just wash your hands. Let's go forward and try to make this a better world for everybody and stuff.
Yeah. Well, so to your point about removing memorials, Confederate memorials, and so forth, it seems to me that is an action. That is an action in a positive direction. So you're right. I think there are going to be people who resist that and so forth, but.
I don't agree with doing away with them all together though. Put them in a museum. People that
sure.
Like stuff like that. You support the Confederacy and that here in South Carolina, it's just amazing to me how they don't call it the Civil War, they call it the War of Northern Aggression. Now, if I remember correctly, they fired upon Union troops at Fort Sumter, but they don't want to. They want to call it the War of Northern Aggression. So that's one of the problems with that's one of the problems with our history.
Or it was a dispute between states or the federal government was impinging on state rights.
Yeah, over tariffs, but they don't want to say the underlying cause. All rights to own slaves. That's what it was.
States' rights to do what? Own slaves.
Yes,
that's exactly what it was, and it was in the secession papers. South Carolina, the first state to secede, and in its secession papers, it said very clearly that it was about slavery.
Yes.
Look it up.
Yes.
So, getting back to this, on a related topic, getting back to this song, The Nine, the bridge of the song. I mean, it's basically a story, sort of a ballad about this guy who made it to this church where these people were worshiping and praying, and they invited him in with open arms. And the bridge of the song is sort of pull back, right, by a power of 10 and look down at the situation. And we've met this evil man before. His face was there on Africa's shore, in the dark middle passage and hate's awful course. We're familiar with his terrible face, his torch and his rope and his hanging place, his Jim Crow laws, his higher race. We know this wretched man all right, his tired flag, his speeches trite, his endless battle against civil rights, his chains, his whip, his hate, his gun. He's been in this land since we've begun, but now let us pray that his time is done.
Wow, deep lyrics. Like I said, I haven't heard that song in a while, but I know the lyrics were profound. You know, like with Tim stuff, all the stuff, all your stuff is profound and stuff. Like Tim's, for y'all that don't know, Tim, none of y'all know, but Tim used to perform with me at the nursing home, which you know, pre-pandemic and stuff, and there's one song I always wanted Tim to do, but it wasn't nursing home appropriate. You know the song about what's the song about came out the road rage? What's the road rage song you used to do?
Oh yeah, Blew Him Away.
Blow 'Em Away. And who's that song by?
That's by a little guy from North Carolina. It'll come to me in a minute. It was covered by David Wilcox, and that's kind of the version that I learned.
Yeah. So Tim and I used to do that. So Tim and I used to play with him at the open mic and stuff, and Tim would do that song. That song always killed me. Some of the lines in that song.
Yeah, that's rich. Funny guy. So
What's the guy's name that wrote the song again?
His name is Chuck Brodsky.
Chuck Brodsky. Okay.
He's a great musician. Yeah. Great songwriter.
So the song. Like now, who are some of your musical influences? I know obviously somebody like Bob Dylan, because I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up. I was born in 1957, and I had 5 older brothers and sisters, so I was influenced by all their music. So a lot of 60s music and early 70s was sort of my sweet spot. I graduated from high school in 75, so all the music that was popular during those times is my sweet spot. I try not to get stuck in any single time period. Of course, those are my favorites, and I still listen to Jackson Browne and James Taylor and the new music made by those same old musicians, right? And
your style reminds me so much of James Taylor's the finger picking and stuff you do.
Yeah, you're super sweet to say that. So, but I listen to new music as well.
Yeah, because James, like one thing people don't know about James Taylor, it's like James is. I was reading in I think it might have been Acoustic Guitar magazine. They're talking about how his finger picking is so intricate and stuff, and how underrated he is as a guitarist. Yeah. The accompaniment and stuff, like even song like something like "Don't Let Me Be Lonely Tonight," which has been covered by several other artists.
Yeah, no one can play like him.
No, they talk about how it's just so hard to figure out his fingering, his finger picking style, because he it's like you go see him 2 nights in a row, he never plays the song the same way.
That's true. That's true. And if you watch his fingers, he's very slow moving from one chord to another. And sometimes when he'll make a chord, he'll put down one finger, another finger, another finger. How no, you and I, we go to that form instantly. Mm-hmm. We go to C, G, D. Our fingers are always they hold the fingerboard at the exact same time. Where he puts them down kind of slowly sometimes, and it's just an amazing thing to listen to him. I listened to some early James Taylor just the other day, from Sweet Baby James, and some of his more recent things, and man, he plays some of the same licks, but they're beautifully different, in the different songs.
Did you go see him when he came to Columbia last time?
Yeah, his tickets are so expensive now. Last time I saw him was like 10 years ago, and
concert tickets period is like. Yeah. You got these people who haven't had a hit in damn 40 years. I know. What you pay $150 to see them? The hell with that.
No, not me neither. So yeah, my days of seeing those kind of concerts are over. But luckily, there are great local musicians who I have great respect for, great singer-songwriters and whatnot.
Now, speaking of like the local musicians, I know you're a big fan of who's it, Jeff Gregory and the Run Out?
Yeah, that's right.
I
haven't seen him a whole lot lately, but I listen to their music online and whatnot. Chris Compton and his band, Admiral Radio, with those Rebecca and Cody, Admiral Radio. So there's about my 3 favorite sort of little local groups, but I like whoever they like too.
Yeah. And one of my favorite local artists is Tim OKeefe. So
So I don't play out too much.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to work my way back to it. So I'm always trying to learn new stuff too. So I mean, it's easy enough to fall back on in the music of my childhood. But there are some new musicians, and I always have a list, on my phone, a list of people to look into more. Joshua Radin is one. I don't know if you listen to his stuff. He's got a great voice. Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors is another one. Ben Rector. So I'm always thinking of someone new to follow. Sarah DeRosa.
So I see you just pulled up Spotify. Is that Spotify?
Well, these are my open tabs, but Spotify is the only thing I pay for.
I love Spotify, man, because I'm like how I make playlists and stuff, and then sometimes when the playlists run out, when you let the music play out and stuff, they'll have similar music. So I've discovered a lot of artists that I would never have discovered if not for Spotify.
Yeah, totally. Me too. So if you put in a newer musician, John Mayer or someone like that, you'll hear a lot of people who are similar to him who are popular, but then you'll hear some people who are like the next tier down, who have just amazing music you've not heard of. I don't listen to pop radio much anymore, so what other exposure do I have except for like Spotify playlists? And so I'll follow those guys and just follow my nose on those.
Some of the best music I've ever heard lately has been artists that aren't that well known, but the music, the quality of the music is like great.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's fun to fall into someone like that who is like just a musician or a group of musicians trying to make a living. And by listening to their music and by spreading it around, so like Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors is one. It sounds like very, very country, but I guess it's progressive folk sort of. So I'll learn a bunch of their tunes and put them out on my little Facebook following, and if I have a couple hundred views, I figure like I've done them a little bit of a favor.
Right.
They've done me this tremendous favor by making music and allowing it into my life on Spotify. So if I can do a little bit back by turning a few people onto them, it's the least I can do.
So, Tim, you taught for a number of years. How long? Tell us about your role as a teacher.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. So I'm only recently retired from that. So I spent almost 40 years in the classroom.
You retired and went back, didn't you?
Yeah, I retired and I went for a year, and I was sort of a consultant and kind of a tutor for a year. And then the teacher who took my place took another job, and so I got my classroom back for another year. So I tallied it the other day, and I think I taught a total of 38 years. And almost all of it was second and third, although I taught some early childhood, kindergarten, first grade and whatnot, and up to grade 6. So I taught every grade from 4-year-old Head Start to grade 6, but most of it was second and third.
Okay.
And in 3 different states, Michigan, Indiana, and down here in South Carolina, in all kinds of different schools. I think I taught in 9 or 10 different schools. Big traditional ships, with like 6 or 8 sessions or sections per grade level. And the latest and the longest I taught in this cool little school that we helped to start in Richland District 2 in Columbia, South Carolina, called the Center for Inquiry, which started out quite small, just 1 classroom per grade level, K to 5. And then for the past 12 or 15 years, it's doubled in size. So it's still a relatively small school, but just a brilliant little island of brilliant teaching. And what I think is the sea of mediocrity these days, I think public schools they have it really hard because of unfair regulations put in place by people who really don't know how kids learn.
Yeah, because I was an elementary ed major,
I remember.
I never did finish though. But I'm kind of thankful that I didn't, because I don't think I think now. Yeah, I don't think I'm built for it, because after going back to college in 2006, I went, and a few years after that, I got a job working at an elementary school. And I just seen how it's not the kids that are the problem, it's some of the parents and stuff. Like I seen how these parents come there and they're like, think their little darlings don't do anything wrong, and I see them put their fingers in the teacher's face and come there cursing and stuff. And it's like, no, I'm not dealing with it, because you curse me, we're gonna have a damn problem. So I'm probably gonna have to be employed long. So I'm like kind of glad I didn't.
Well, you think about legislators and even our new state superintendent of education, her degree is not, I don't believe she's ever taught kids maybe she homeschooled her own kids or something, but she never taught in a public school setting. To me, that's like ridiculous.
It used to be that to be any kind of administrator, well, not any kind of administrator, but like as far as like principal or vice principal, at some point you had to be a teacher. Just like in the legal system, if you're a judge, at some point you were a lawyer.
Just like in the military, at some point you were a soldier with boots on the ground.
Right.
You're not going to be a general or a colonel if you've never been, if you've never gone in. So yeah, it's ridiculous. And
that just shows how much. That's another thing that shows how much times have changed and stuff.
Yeah, it does. But she's duly elected, so it also shows that the electorate cares more about political and social agendas than they do about caring for the educational needs of their kids, it seems to me.
Yeah. So where did you go to college at?
Indiana University of Bloomington, 75.
Same school that Larry Bird?
Yeah. No, he was Indiana State.
Okay. Let's see. I'm to think of somebody.
Bobby Knight was.
Bobby Knight was right.
Yeah. He was coaching then. Yeah, he was great coach, kind of a character.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like very eccentric.
Back in the 70s, yeah, they had a big basketball run then, and that's why I met my wife Heidi Mills. We lived in the same dormitory.
Okay.
So we met when we were 18 years old.
They had co-ed dormitories back then, or are you talking?
Well, they're different sides of the building.
Okay.
The dorm was co-ed.
I was about to say
there were doors.
I know Indiana's like that level, because Indiana's like one of those Bible Belt states too, isn't it, pretty much?
Oh yeah, it was changed a lot. This is the mid 70s too. Right?
Yeah. This is why I knew that wasn't allowed then.
No, there was a door between the men's side and the women's side.
Okay.
But that door often went missing though.
Wow.
I never took the door though. I'm not responsible for the removal of that door.
So do you miss teaching?
I do in a lot of ways, right? Because for all of my adult life, my best friends were kids.
Do you ever get to see any of your kids now that they're grown up and stuff?
Occasionally, I have a writing relationship with several kids. There's long letters and emails and pictures, and we're connected through Facebook and that kind of thing. So I get to see my former students a lot. I haven't gotten into classrooms much in the last couple of years, and yeah, I miss the company of kids. They have something that adults don't seem to have: the level of honesty, a level of humor. And the kind of teacher I am, the kind of teacher that I was, and the teachers that I admire always had great relationships with their kids. Not that there weren't ever problems, but I always figured, I had 22 kids who I was going to be best friends with in a month. Whenever I got a new class, like we're all going to be best friends.
Yeah.
And it pretty much always worked out that way,
It's just sad because you look at how much they pay athletes and that teachers like. Everybody at some point had to have a teacher. Teaching should be teaching should be one of the highest paid professions there is. But teachers are very sadly very undervalued in this society now.
It's pathetic. I mean, yes. A single mom who teaches, who has a few kids, is living under the poverty line. And new
yes.
teachers. Yeah, it is completely pathetic. And you have people say, well, they get summers off or whatever. Those people who malign teachers or act like teachers have it easy don't freaking know what a teacher's life is like.
Because I work for the state. I won't say what I do, but anyway, you know what I do. But anyway, we just got a big pay raise back in August. I think it was July, August, and it's our salary now is comparable. Our lowest salary is comparable to some of the teachers, like some teacher's salary.
Well, when you consider, teachers have to get a master's.
Now what we do is dangerous now, but it's not,
Absolutely, and everyone should have the right to make a decent living if you work hard.
Yes.
But teachers, you can't get certified unless you have at least an undergrad degree, and then in most places, when I moved to South Carolina, you had to have a master's degree or at least begin a master's degree within 5 years. That's all you paying for this, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. And then so you had to have.
So what happened if you didn't get that degree within 5 years? What happened?
There were ways you could kind of work around it for a little while. Eventually, you had to get a master's degree, and it's all out of your own pocket. And then there's recertification and stuff that the State Department will mandate. It's all out of your own pocket. So, I mean,
Is that in South Carolina? Just like, or is that across the board, pretty much?
I can't tell you across the nation, but it certainly is in South Carolina.
Not surprising. This is, I swear, man. Like, and I hate to berate South Carolina, but like, this is sometimes the most ass backward state.
Well, yeah, and I think it's true. Many of the worst parts of education are true everywhere.
Yeah.
Take literacy instruction. That's one of those things that we've moved away from what we know is right. And I think it's a cultural thing, moms for liberty, or, the kind of political stuff that we don't want to teach real history in our classrooms anymore. The kind of stuff that's, DeSantis has started and making a big deal about books being banned from libraries and all this stuff. I mean, if I was a teacher teaching in a classroom in a building where they wanted to take the books off my shelves, I mean, I'd be like those gun rights people. You have to pry it out of my cold, dead hands. If I think it's a decent book, I mean, if a parent has enough knowledge about what's happening that they decide, I don't want my kids reading these books, totally get it. I totally get it. Because some books are over the line for someone. You have to draw the line.
I thought the book, I from what I've written, I've never read the book, but you remember the book Catcher in the Rye?
I've never read it. I wish I could.
But I mean, I've heard that was kind of like kind of risque for
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So I just read 2 books that are banned in Florida, as far as I know right now: To Kill a Mockingbird.
Really?
And Of Mice and Men. I'll have to check on that, but I'm pretty sure both of those books.
Of Mice and Men, I can kind of see why that might be.
I can see why it would offend people, but the thing about that is, don't read it.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's dangerous when someone says, I think that this book should be banned for all kids. I mean, I just read that book, and I read both those books.
You said Mice and Men, what was the other book?
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, okay, yeah.
2 brilliant books.
Yes.
2 anti-racist books. 2 pro-social justice books.
Yes.
2 books that should be read by, in my opinion, everyone.
Yes.
But if a parent has strong feelings about those books because they use the N-word, for example, well, the N-word is used in such a way.
Or about Mark Twain.
So show how heinous people are who use that word nonchalantly and whatnot.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's self-defeating. But I read both those books and reread them. I've read them many times. But I have a problem with someone saying, I want this book out of a library.
Yes.
That's like, it goes against the very definition of what a library is. A library is a place where there are many books that you get to make a choice of what you want to read. You don't get to make a choice for everyone else, because that's not a library.
Right. We're seeing more and more of our rights our individual rights being trampled upon and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. It's just sad. So, now, Tim's wife, Miss Heidi. Tell us a little bit about Heidi, the love of your life, and who's a wonderful cook. Also, I've eaten dinner at the house several times.
She is probably my best teacher. So we both went into education, and when we first met, we were undergraduates, and we met when we were freshmen in college. We were 18 years old. Kind of fell in love when we were 19. We lived in the same dorm and whatnot. So we both became teachers, and we both taught in Grand Rapids, Michigan for a few years, and she went back and got her doctorate at Indiana, and we moved down here to South Carolina where she was offered a job at USC. And really she's also retired from USC, but now she works with teachers and coaches in local school districts. And when she talks to me about her work, she still just leaves me breathless. She pretty much started Center for Inquiry, where I taught for all those years, and still does staff development there. And honestly, she has the eyes to see what needs to be done in public schools, and her work with kids, her work with teachers is just absolutely breathtaking. And it's not just me saying that because I'm in love with her. She's in 2014 she won. She didn't win, but she was selected as outstanding educator for National Council of Teachers of English, which is like the biggest award you can get in the field of education.
Great.
So she's a brilliant educator, and she has one of those things that when I see brilliant teachers, it's not so much content as it is her ability to have wonderful relationships. And same with me. I mean, you know, I taught little kids, so I mean, the content wasn't overpowering. But the success, it seems, for me, of the greatest teachers are relational. So, you know, I'm making a connection between my work and her work. My work with little kids, I mean, every day wasn't amazing. Every day wasn't just a freaking miracle. But I had a relationship with my kids that I didn't raise my voice. I never had kids taken to the office. You know, there wasn't that kind of like overpowering disciplinary thing, because it was so much of it was relational. I tried to foster this situation where we all were friends. We were all teaching and learning from each other. It wasn't just top down. And I see her doing that with teachers and as well, and administrators. She also works with administrators. The relationships that she has with them allow them to see her in a way that, like, okay, this person can be my teacher. I'm not threatened by her. You know, she insists that people call her by her first name and so forth when she can. And she reaches people mentally and in terms of what they do every day in classrooms and with teachers. But she also reaches them on, I know it's going to sound kind of weird, on this very sort of spiritual and heart level that they'll want to align with her.
Yes.
And pay attention to her beliefs and try to espouse them in their own work. She's the best.
Now, both of y'all have written some books, some books that are like guidelines to curriculum and stuff like. Or
yeah.
What do you call it? Like, I guess books to show people how to teach. Or
yeah. We've co-written a bunch of things, articles and journals and those kinds of things. She's really the writer as far as that goes. She's always like the first author on things that we've done together. One of the wonderful parts of our relationship is that she has done classroom research with me ever since we moved to South Carolina, so like the mid-'80s. She was in my classroom one full day a week, sort of paying attention to kids, developing relationships with kids, helping me to be a better teacher with a stronger foundation. Largely the things that we've written have come out of our time together, and then also when we started the Center for Inquiry, she wrote a brilliant book, edited this brilliant book called From the Ground Up, and it was about how to start a school, a brilliant school, and then a whole bunch of stakeholders were involved in it. The woman who went on to become the superintendent of that district had a chapter in it, I had a chapter in it, our principal had a chapter in it, so that's a really, really good one. She's written several. We have a whole shelf of them now. I don't think that writing another book is going to be in the future for her. She's had some health setbacks and whatnot, but yes. She's getting out there in classrooms now and working with teachers and principals and really doing a fantastic job.
Yes, Heidi's one of the bravest women I know. So what brought y'all to South Carolina anyway? I meant to ask you that earlier.
Yeah, she when she graduated from Indiana with her doctorate, we wanted to stay up in the Midwest because that's where we were from, and we weren't sure that was going to happen. So she applied to all these places, including South Carolina, and we were waiting for something local. Ohio or Indiana or Illinois were the three places we wanted to stay. And South Carolina made the first offer, and they really wanted her. And so we came down here, which was, for me, quite a cultural difference. Because I'd never been to South Indiana.
Yeah, what year was that?
1986.
Yeah, because I always ask people, what in the hell brings them this godforsaken state? You know, it's like, you know, now, of course, this is the Bible bill. I shouldn't say godforsaken, but let's be real.
It's different.
A bunch of damn hypocrisy is what you see, what you run into down here.
I'm from Indiana, so it's just as hypocritical.
Oh, yeah, because if I remember correctly, there's a famous photo in, I think it's Marion, Indiana, with the two black guys hanging from the trees, and you got this crowd pointing around. So you've seen it, I'm sure.
Oh, I probably have.
Yeah, there's got a crowd standing around cheering. You got kids and stuff. That was in Marion, Indiana. So yeah, I know Indiana is not the most racially friendly place either. So.
No. My last year teaching there was when Heidi was in the doctoral program, so it was like in 85 or 86. There was a cross burned on the high school lawn where I taught in Decatur, Indiana, Decatur Township. Crosses burned on the high school lawn because there was a mixed race couple going to prom.
In the 80s?
86.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the home of the Klan.
When did the schools integrate? What year did the schools integrate in Indiana?
It was integrated, you know. I don't know what year it was integrated, but I went to a Catholic school for grade school and part of high school, and my grade school was I think there were maybe one or two minority kids in there. It was all white. And when I went to a Catholic high school, it was very white. So, but I think probably in the 50s, surely before South Carolina, because there was, I don't remember anything about like.
Yeah, South Carolina. I started school the year that they fully integrated, which was like 1969.
Yeah, so they were integrated before then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's still in some places sort of de facto segregation. You know, white areas have white kids.
Right.
And sadly, rural areas or poorer areas, often those are, you know, the schools that don't get as much, and it's sad, like it is here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
There are places that, you know.
Like they had that place they had a thing a few years ago, probably about 8-10 years ago, the Hall of Shame.
The corridor
of Shame, right. Because that was what was that, Carleton County, or what was that at?
Well, it was all along the highway, right, to Myrtle Beach. What is that highway? Sort of between Columbia and the coast there. There's just this great swath of poverty. And
yeah,
the schools there were miserable. I did some consulting when I was a young man here in South Carolina. I did some consulting in those schools, and I was just appalled. But yeah, there were schools in Columbia. And I first came to Casey, when I first taught in Casey, the school where I taught, one of the schools where I taught for my first year here. This is so gross, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The front office, everyone smoked. And of course, everyone in the whole building practically smoked. But in the front office, people just smoked all the time out in the open. The custodian smoked in the hallways. Mr. Steverson, the custodian, smoked a cigar out in the hallway. Mm-hmm. There were cigarette butts everywhere outside the doors, where the principal would just flick his cigarettes butt. I remember walking into the building and thinking the whole ground was just studded with like thousands of cigarette butts. It was filthy. And this is Casey, South Carolina, you know, one of our little burgs. And the place was just falling apart. And, you know, most of the kids were on free and reduced lunch, and they were treated pathetically. The teachers thought, most teachers thought the kids couldn't learn, so they were just there to kind of house them and holler at them and so forth. And then those are the same kids I had. My first year here, I taught what's called basic skills. Those are the kids who all take this school, which is super poor, in kind of in an area that there's a lot of high crime and stuff. Take the lowest testing kids out of that school. That's who I worked with, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade kids. And it was amazing. I mean, that was one of the best educational experiences I had, because I was learning how to teach basically from these poor kids. They were teaching me how to teach.
Yeah.
So it was great. And that's the perfect example of teaching being largely relational, because I mean, I'm not saying it was all easy, but I mean, I had respect for the kids, and honestly, we loved each other. And
right.
So I didn't have the issues with those same kids that they go back to class and the teachers are hollering at them and sending them up to the office to get paddled all the time, and it was brutal. It was brutal, but you know, we had.
Oh, so that was when paddling was still allowed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids were paddled all the time.
And really and truly, like I had this gentleman that used to be my gym coach, and he used to paddle me and stuff. And then, we got a good relationship now and stuff. You know, we talk about we got a good relationship and stuff. But you know, I go do help him with some things around his house and stuff. But me and him had a discussion one day. He was talking about how he didn't teach very long. He was talking about how he quit because basically they quit allowing him to do paddling and that stuff. And the only reason that they stopped, that's called corporal punishment. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
The only reason they stopped that is because they started having more black administrators. And, you know, nobody white's going to have anybody black paddling their child or whatever, right? That's part of the reason. Not that would have happened, but that probably wouldn't have happened anyway, but just the possibility of that's deplorable. But it was all right. But it was the other way around. But so of course he claims it was like they took away his rights. No.
So, and I would never paddle a kid or have a kid paddled.
Yeah. So.
Big difference. Yeah.
So let's talk about your literary pursuits.
My failure to publish any novels that I've written.
Well, that's all right. And don't feel bad because I got a bunch of stuff unpublished there. So at least you're making the effort to shop for our publisher. So tell us about you got how many novels completed now? 2
done, and I'm working on a third one.
Tell us about the novels.
Okay, the first one is set in 1967-68. It starts with the first day of school and ends with the last day of school. So it's that school year. It takes place in Northwest Indiana, so it's kind of semi-autobiographical. It's this kid. It's mainly about this 4 friends who go to a Catholic school, which is integrated that year, and 6th graders. And it's sort of living in that world of 1967-68, which was a hard year. Assassinations, the Vietnam War, civil rights struggles, and all that stuff. So it's these 4 friends mainly just trying to make their way through this brutal school, lots of bullying, with all this crazy stuff happening culture-wise, trying to sort of grow up. It's a coming-of-age story. And it's these 4 kids who might be considered misfits, but you sort of get inside their heads and you learn to love them. One of the kids has phocomelia, which is where her hand is formed too close to her body, and so she's seen as sort of a freak. Her mom took thalidomide, which is a real thing, right? I had to do a lot of research.
Yes.
So she was a thalidomide baby, so she has only one functioning arm. The African American girl was the first girl to integrate the school, so she was in a way sort of a freedom fighter. And these 2 knuckleheaded guys who live in the neighborhood, so it's a coming of age story of 6th graders, and the main character lives across the street from this old German couple who are Holocaust survivors, and so it's lessons he learns from them. The guy's an artist. With wood and so forth, and so it's lessons he learns from them, and it's lessons he learns from his friends, and it's a love story sort of. 2 of the kids in this little group sort of fall in love as 6th graders might, and it's also a story of transformation. Some of the brutal teachers who were really stuck in sort of the worst of their faith. So to come to realize the good in people, it's a story of salvation and transformation as well. So it was fun to write. My first one was the first year that I retired, and it was just. I actually remember when you were working, when you were doing the basic drafts for that book and stuff. You were, So I overwrote it. I didn't know that much about the process. I just wrote the story, and it was about twice as long as that kind of literature is allowed. I didn't even know there was a limit.
How many pages did you end up with?
They usually think about it in terms of words. So it was like 150,000 words, and around 70,000 is what's the upper end of what's acceptable. So I wrote it by twice for middle grade kids.
Oh, okay. So this book is aimed towards.
It's aimed towards middle grade, but honestly, I think you'd enjoy it too. Just in terms of it puts you back in that historical place.
Yes.
And even if you weren't a Catholic kid raised in a Catholic school, it's all based on real stuff.
Okay.
So it gives you a window into that time period as well, science and technology and whatnot. And it was a blast to write that, because that was really sort of my childhood too, and some of those friends were my friends.
Okay.
My second book takes place, is the main character of that book grows up and becomes a teacher in Casey, South Carolina. And he works in a school that I named Ben Tillman Elementary. And Ben Tillman, if you know who Ben Tillman is,
yes.
He was a
terrible guy,
a super horrible human being. There's a statue of him at the
University of South Carolina, isn't it?
At the State House.
The State House.
So you walking up the State House steps, there's a larger-than-life statue of Ben Tillman.
Is there a hall named after him at USC or something?
Clemson.
Clemson. Okay.
So, and that, he was much revered, but he was a racist. He was a governor in the late 1800s and a U.S. senator.
He was also governor of South Carolina?
Governor of South Carolina,
Okay.
and then a U.S. senator.
Pitchfork Ben killed him.
Pitchfork Ben, yeah, because he threatened people on the
State House grounds?
on the floor of the Senate.
Okay.
He threatened to kill them and so forth. Awful man, racist, who works his whole life to keep black people disenfranchised and so forth. And there's a statue of him on our State House grounds. Anyway, the second book, I'll tell you just sort of the elevator pitch. This guy comes to South Carolina and he is very new to the South. He's a Yankee new to the South, and he's put in this hard school with these hard kids, much like the kids I taught, basic skills kids. And he learns how to be a teacher. And he sort of falls in love with a young teacher down the hall. And his kids sort of take up, in the second half of the book, the move to change the name of their school. Okay. So there's a bit of a quest involved in it too. And so it's not...
Is that because they learned a terrible history of the person that was named after?
Yeah, absolutely right. And so they have a principal who's a racist, and many of the adults in their lives at the school are racist. And so it's not a story, A Great White Hope, because here's this young teacher who's white, right? And I definitely, one of the first things I would say about this is not like him raising awareness with these kids and having having them change the name of the school. It's not that. But he comes to find out about Ben Tillman, and he shares it with his kids. And they're freaking outraged, right? As they should be. And he's like, well, there's not really anything we can do about it. And the kids talk him into it. Like, the kids talk him into, let's try to make a difference. And so part of the story is those kids and that teacher trying to change the name of that school. And it's getting to know these kids who are hard luck and low testing, and to see them as a whole person. So they all have these strengths. A couple of them are brilliant writers, even though their writing is unconventional, right? They may not know how to spell, but they write brilliantly. A couple of them are super curious.
These are high school kids?
Seventh grade. So, but this is technically a new adult novel, because the main characters are in their early 20s. These are the teachers. But really, they share the main characters with these young kids. And so it's the teacher I would want to have been at that time in my life.
So your target audience for that book would be
new adults or just adults. It's literary fiction.
When you say new adults, you mean young adults?
So not young adults, because there's all these like gradations or all these segments. So there's middle grade, which is like 5th, 6th, 7th. There's young adults, which is like through high school. New adults is like early 20s.
Okay.
But it's adult fiction. But okay. A lot of the characters are junior high kids. That's what they called it back then. So yeah, I mean that's a good book too. One of my favorite characters of that book is Tom, the Yankee kid, comes down to be a teacher here, and he doesn't have anywhere to stay or whatever. And so he ends up living in this barn cellar of this old black man who grows peaches and plays blues. You would love this character. And so a big part of the book is sort of Roosevelt Jackson teaching Tom how to be an adult. And
that sounds like a blues singer's name. Yeah. Roosevelt Jackson.
Roosevelt Jackson. He plays blues with these other old black men and teaches Tom to play the blues. And
okay.
Yeah, so there's a big musical bend to this part, to that story.
Yes.
And the third one, which I'm working on right now, tentatively called The Nobodies. It's 4 of those kids, those low testing, junior high kids, as seniors in high school, and it's them working through being sort of freaks in that school. One kid he was a burn victim when he was 10 years old, so he's terribly scarred. And one girl's in a wheelchair; she has spina bifida. One kid is a mixed race, big, tall, strong kid, a little slower than the rest, and a gay, sort of punk girl. And it's these 4 kids who sort of bond together. They've been bonded together since they were young, and it's them getting through high school. And again, bullying. I think there might be some like rape in this one, because now this is young adults.
Right.
No holds barred.
Right. Okay.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll.
All right.
so I mean, they all would have been fun to write in their own ways. This one is the most fun because I can get the kids to talk like teenagers, and they have thoughts like teenagers might have, and
some mild profanity.
There's some profanity, and I think there's going to be some date rape stuff, and I haven't gotten the whole thing sketched out, but I've written maybe 50 pages so far, and I love the whole process of writing. I don't love the pitching it, trying to get an agent,
So needless to say, if Ron DeSantis becomes president, this book won't be in your life.
Oh, no. These would be banned from school. And I'm setting it out knowing that right now. There are books that I would want to read. So.
Right. So, okay.
And maybe you would want to read them, Eddie.
I probably would.
You might.
So, now recently, I asked you, about Miss Heidi. Now, Miss Heidi was having some health issues. Did you care to go into detail about that?
Sure, because she's a cancer survivor. She is. She's one of those people, unlike me. Like if something terrible happened to me about it, I probably would suck it all inside and shake. I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't go public with it. But she's been as public with this as anyone. Her whole journey. She's had breast cancer. She's had a bilateral mastectomy, and now she's cancer free, and she's looking to live the rest of her life without cancer and as healthy as can be. She is like my hero.
Now, did she have like a history of that in her family or anything like that?
Her mom had cancer, but she didn't have breast cancer.
Okay.
So it's hard to say exactly where it came
because
from.
you and I just look at like other factors that may contribute to cancer. Like you and Heidi have one of the best diets. The stuff y'all eat. Y'all are vegan, right?
No, not vegan, but we don't eat red meat.
Okay.
We avoid,
That's like I've had spaghetti at your house. I know y'all had. Yeah, we had meat.
We didn't fool you.
Yeah.
That was not meat spaghetti, right?
Was that tofu or something?
It was something, yeah. Some kind of meat substitute.
Yeah, it was good, whatever it was.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, no, we've always tried to eat healthy. We exercise like crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that helped to give her a strong core and a strong foundation to come back from, this hard thing that she faced. But honestly, and it's not just me, people who know her say she's an inspiration. That's the word that people use. And I feel so blessed to be with a person who, is that strong. Now, she wouldn't mind me saying it. There are moments where we both cried.
Yeah.
Like when we got the diagnosis and whatnot. And she's had other health crises in the
past.
No,
that's what we not even being husband and wife, but just being friends with somebody. You're supposed to bear each other's burdens and stuff. So yeah.
No, exactly right. Yeah. She tells me my shit. So
how about y'all? Y'all got any new dogs? I know. What's the dog? What's the lab? Y'all had a lab, right? The lab died some years ago.
That's exactly right. Our first.
That's the dog that got away one day, and you were looking for him to buy. Yeah, I remember you were looking for that dog one day. What's the dog's name?
The first one we had was Sasha, big yellow.
Sasha.
And now we have
yellow lab, right?
Mally, who's the one who's a puppy, probably when you and I were first getting married.
I remember you had two. Yeah.
So the old one died, and we have the young one now, and it's best dog.
And that one's getting pretty old now. She'll be.
Yeah, she's 10 or 11.
That's old, and that's
it is old, especially if you're lab. And when she was a puppy, she broke her elbow, and so I think that's going to be the beginning of the end for her. She's got arthritis and whatnot, but a good dog, best ever. Not a good watchdog, but a good pal.
Right.
She doesn't do tricks. She's a friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, like I said, you're done now. What I'm gonna do at the end of this link, at the end of this podcast, I'm gonna post your performance of the 9. I'm gonna post that at the end. So y'all will be in for a treat. So be sure to look for that. I'm gonna post Tim's song, the 9. This is the song we talked about. And so now you got it. Now for people that wish to do what you do, any of the things that you do, particularly the music, or to be an aspiring writer or an educator, what kind of advice would you have for those people?
Well, a big question. So,
let's rephrase the question. What would you tell your 18-year-old self if you were coming out of high school now? What advice would you give your 18-year-old self, 17, 18-year-old self?
That's a good one. I think probably the most successful aspect of my life has been falling in love with the right woman or with the right person.
That is very important.
And everything else flowed kind of from that, all the connections I made. And when you think about it, some of the most important things, when you look back on your life, some of the most important moments were just chance. I happened to be in a class with this woman who I totally had a crush on. And I happened to be able to work up the nerve to talk to her on the way back from class. That changed my life. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for that chance meeting and that chance,
That was the defining moment of your life, your young life.
I would say, yeah. Everything else branched out from there. I became an educator. I moved south, and all that. There were certain.
So was at that point there was your major? Were you already going to be thinking about being a teacher, or did you have another major?
I was thinking about it, yeah.
Okay.
But I wasn't sold until I met and fell in love with that one woman. So in terms of advice, I'd say some of the most mundane things can become important to you later in your life. I never started to be a rock and roll star, but music became a super important part of my life. Almost never does a day go by where I don't pick it up and play something.
Yes.
And I also listen to music differently because I play. I'm not saying I'm a good player, but I listen to music, and the music is inside me. There's always music inside me, and that's just one of those little mundane things that is, I fell for this guy who got me a guitar, got me into this thing.
Yeah.
It's never been a major thing, but so little things can be extremely joyful and fulfilling throughout your entire life. And pay attention to those small moments, because you never know when one of those is something around the rest of your life pivots.
Yes.
Become an educator, or just whatever.
Yes.
It's all about the relationships.
So, as far as somebody who wanted to get into writing, like, what advice do you give them?
Freaking write, man! Every chance you get. So one of the things that I've done for many, many years is I have a little pocket notebook with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with writing books and whatnot for educators, but I've always written. So I've always had, because I'm a teacher, I always had my students write, and they had to write to publish. Whatever grade I worked with, 5th and 6th graders, 2nd and 3rd graders, we always wrote, and our goal was to publish for the class. And so I did too. So I mean, if you want to write, pick up a notebook, pick up a pen, sit down at your computer and write. It doesn't get done otherwise. I'm going to tell you a quick little story. I was in this critique group with a local group of writers here in Lexington, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Half those people never wrote. They just never wrote.
Really?
They thought they were writers and they would come to critique with like a letter they'd written 20 years ago, or something that they wrote one time years ago that they still liked. And I mean, now you're a writer if you write. Even if no one ever sees it, even if you never get it published, writing is its own rewards in some ways. It clarifies your mind, it helps you get things sorted out. I mean, it just makes you a logical thinker.
It's because you're talking about keeping a notebook. I just recently started going. I went to when I moved earlier this year. There was a Dollar Tree nearby. So Dollar Tree's got this neat thing, these little journals you can buy for like $1.20. Everything's $1.25 in Dollar Tree. So I started thinking, now I've been writing stuff on my phone and stuff, but I said, I'm gonna try a different approach. I'm gonna start actually handwriting this stuff, and it's made a difference and stuff, and stuff.
Yeah, well,
it's different. Stuff sometimes we get lazy. I mean, nothing's wrong with the way I was doing it before, but yeah, I mean, I write. I do poems all the time. So I'm like, I could easily right now. I could easily publish 2 books of poetry right now.
So why don't you?
I will. It's on my bucket. It's on my bucket list.
Yeah. So So for aspiring writers, I would say what you have to do is write. Even if you never get something as big as a book or even a short story, it's just write everyday stuff. And I don't mean lists of things. I mean write something from your heart. Write something from your experiences. Recently, I took up writing a dream journal. Mm-hmm. So when I get up, if I've had a dream that's vivid enough for me to remember, I write it down. That's just one more little opportunity to write. And the cool thing about that is I remember my dreams a lot more now that I've written them down.
Yeah.
So it's okay if I read just a couple poems and maybe
True.
we'll cut it off.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I took a little workshop, and then so I started writing poems in my little pocket journal. This is a goofy one. It's called Wild Hair Breeze. This wild hair breeze came blasting through trees with clacking branches and coarse whisper of leaves. It ruffled the feathers of blue jays and crows. It blew back the petals of the thorny new rose. It rippled the waters of the lake and the pond. It flipped off the hat of the old vagabond. It lifted the skirts of Catholic schoolgirls and puffed out the tails of tree-circling squirrels. It riffled the laundry, sheets hung on the line. and carried the scent of wisteria divine. And that was just a little thing that came to me as I was walking my dog. And
nice.
I had my little pocket notebook with me, and I just thought of all the ways that the wind did that, you know.
Now, do you ever turn? Now, you know, I get asked this sometimes about. Do you ever turn your poems into songs?
Absolutely, that was where I was going next.
Even with me, generally, if my poems stay poems, my songs, my poems stay poems, and my songs stay songs. I think I've had a couple instances where I turned a song. I did take a poem and turn it into a song, but you know.
Yeah, so sometimes the music comes to me first, and sometimes it's the lyrics. And the lyrics, I don't consider myself a poet, but I mean I write lyrics, and I'm going to read a bit of some lyrics to a song that started as a poem.
Go ahead.
And this will be the last one I read, and it's a bit long, so I might cut some of it out. I was sitting in an airport in Albuquerque. I'm an avid reader. That's it. The other advice to give a writer is read. Read everything, read anything. Read great books like Of Mice and Men and To Kill a Mockingbird, and read shitty books that aren't any good, because you'll never know how good a book is until you read one that's not so good.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would say if you want to write, you got to read. Anyway, I was sitting in an airport in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I ran out of book. How can you sit there for like an hour and not have a book, right? So I was just people watching, and I had my notebook open in my lap. And I was watching this guy who shared the space with me, Latino guy, bald guy, and he's reading the newspaper. I'm just watching it, and I'm watching the people walk by the gate, but we're in the gate area, just the two of us, smallish airport. And he's reading and reading, and he puts the paper down in his lap, and he folds it, and he starts crying. He just put his head in his hands and cried. And what occurred to me was something in that paper affected him in such a way that it brought in this huge emotional response, enough to make him weep in a public place. And then it made me think, it's all the alphabet, right? All writing is these 26 symbols that we use in different ways, and it gives us everything we think and everything we say. And so I think I might have started with that line. And so I sat there in that airport, in that space with my notebook open, thinking of all the ways we use the alphabet in our lives and what it does for us. Those little ink and paper symbols, and how they change how we view the world and how we express everything. Mm-hmm. So this is a poem that became a song, and I'll just read a bit of it. It's called 26. Ink and paper, truth and lies, 26 letters make you laugh and cry. 26 letters all rearranged, black and white, joy and pain. History lessons, the power of the pen. Will we ever learn, or just do it all again? 26 letters in the holy books. Will we turn away or take another look? 26 letters in all we write. Declarations, constitutions, civil rights. The same letters used by the KKK give us promises to keep and blessed words to pray. The same letters used in our vows, of course, are the very ones we use when we file for divorce. The same 26 in different combinations declare a massive war or peace between nations. Words of redemption, the birth of a nation. Words of hatred and condemnation. Obituaries, eulogies, 26 are used to clarify, distill, obfuscate, confuse. To grant restitution, write a bald-faced lie, describe a brilliant sunrise or a baby's first cry. Only 26 letters in all we write and read, any situation, all we want and need. Some four-letter words carry massive weight: evil, kind, pain, love, and hate. Words can hurt you just like stones and sticks, and they're all put together with the same 26. 26 symbols used in different ways give us everything we write, everything we say. Ink and paper, truth and lies. 26 letters make you laugh and cry.
Go ahead. Did you finish it? Okay, good. Great. Yeah, I wasn't going to stop you. That was great. I see you use that word obfuscate again. What was the word?
Obfuscate.
Yeah, because you didn't use that in one of your songs. I was like, the first time I had to look that word up.
Who the hell uses the word obfuscate in a song?
This is guys using sometimes itself. Or it's poetry. You're gonna get to the thesaurus at some point probably. I think I'm pretty literate and got a good vocabulary, but Kim made me work. All right, Kim, this has been a blast, man.
My pleasure.
And thank you for coming on this thing. And man, we got to get together and play sometime and stuff.
It'll be awesome, man. We'll have you over for dinner.
All right, I appreciate it.
We'll use meat this time.
All right. All right, so once again, I want to thank my guest for today, Mr. Tim OKeefe, and Tim, good luck going forward, and I'm expecting great things. The best is yet to come for you, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Once again, I want to thank my guest for today, Tim OKeefe. Now, we're going to have another first on our show. We've never had anyone do a musical performance. Now, Tim's not actually going to do a musical performance, but what we're going to do is we're going to feature an audio from a song that Tim and I talked about during the interview. This song is called "Deny." This is a song that Tim wrote about the Emmanuel 9 killing in Charleston, South Carolina. Something very near and dear to both our hearts, as both of us live in South Carolina. And so, without further ado, here's the song, Tim OKeefe, "Denying."
Charleston in the month of June, what a Emmanuel. Good people met to share their prayers. One man came to kill. They invited him to share their time, to pray, to learn, to teach. They welcomed him with open arms, but his heart was out of reach. Maybe some good will happen, maybe some kind of spark. Maybe we'll move a little closer to the light, maybe coming from the dark. Maybe we'll seek some honest answers, that would be so fine. Maybe we'll speak some truth to power, we owe so much to the nine. He shot and killed those precious ones, start some kind of war. He thought his hate would conquer their love, but he'll get no reward. 'Cause when the families of the victims spoke, their strength came from their faith. Forgiveness was a message they shared. There's no room in my heart to hate. Maybe some good will happen, maybe some kind of spark. Maybe we'll move a little closer to the light, maybe coming from the dark. Maybe we'll seek some honest answers, that would be so fine. Maybe we'll speak some truth to power, we owe so much to the nine. There's no trouble for that young man to get himself a gun. Make chains and whips and ropes all over. He carried a Glock 41. They prayed and talked that mid-June night, like a stranger in their midst, singing those old hallelujah songs that couldn't know what to expect. We've met this evil man before. His face was there whenever hate's awful course. We're familiar with his terrible face, his gun and his rope, his hanging place, his Jim Crow laws, his higher race. We know this wretched man alright, his tired flag, his speech is trite, his endless battles against civil rights, his chains, his whip, his hate, his gun, has been in this land since we've begun. Now let us pray that his time is done. Along with the Birmingham girls, Mississippi and young Emmett Till, Freedom Riders back in '61, we remember their stories well. Come ye that love the Lord, they sang, and we are marching to beautiful Zion. We sing their songs, we raise our voices to the memory of the night.